Welcome to Nikki's Nightmares, where chilling tales come to life. In today's terrifying story, we descend into the world of Let's Not Meet, a collection of true, real-life horror encounters where ordinary moments take a sudden, sinister turn. From strangers who linger just a little too long, to encounters that feel wrong long before anything happens. These are the stories of people who walked away from something they were never meant to face. No ghosts, no demons, just real people, and the terrifying realization that danger can be hiding in plain sight. These unsettling encounters will leave you questioning every instinct and every stranger you've ever trusted. If you love scary stories, paranormal encounters, and true horror experiences, you're in the right place. Make sure to like, subscribe, and join me as we delve into the deep, dark, and the mysterious. There's a place on the internet where thousands of people have gathered for years, not to tell fictional horror stories, but to document something far more unsettling. A digital archive of encounters with people who should have never crossed their path. It's called Let's Not Meet. At its core, the Let's Not Meet subreddit was created with a very specific purpose, a place for users to share spine-tingling, deeply personal accounts of real-life encounters that left them shaken, sometimes for years afterward. Stories of near misses, stories of stalking, stories where something felt wrong, long before anything actually happened, and in many cases, stories where the ending could have been much worse if just one small detail had gone differently. Unlike many horror communities online, Let's Not Meet was never meant to be about the paranormal. There were no rules about haunted houses or shadow figures lurking in the corner of your room. Instead, the focus was something far more grounded and far more disturbing. Real people, strangers who followed too closely, voices that lingered too long, encounters that began as harmless and slowly revealed something darker beneath the surface. Because the horror here wasn't imagined, it was possible. In its earlier days, the subreddit built a reputation for detailed, believable accounts, stories that felt less like entertainment and more like confessions. People didn't just tell what happened, they relived it. Every uneasy glance, every strange coincidence, every moment where instinct whispered, something isn't right. But as the community grew, so did the questions. Some users began to wonder, were all of these stories really true? Discussions surfaced about authenticity, about whether certain posts had been exaggerated or entirely fabricated, and yet that uncertainty only added another layer of unease, because even if some stories weren't real, many of them were. The impact of Let's Not Meet didn't stay contained within Reddit. It spread. The stories were compelling enough, disturbing enough, that they eventually inspired a podcast, Let's Not Meet, a true horror podcast, which began by reading submissions directly from the subreddit. Listeners were drawn in by the same thing that made the forum so unsettling in the first place. The idea that these weren't just stories, they were warnings. But even that expansion wasn't without controversy. Questions arose about whether the original, anonymous authors had given permission for their stories to be used, leading the podcast to eventually shift its approach, relying instead on submissions sent directly by listeners. Even outside the subreddit, the tension remained. Who owns a story when it was shared in fear and anonymity? As the years passed, Let's Not Meet continued to evolve. By 2026, it had become one of the internet's most recognizable sources for real-life horror. a place where the line between storytelling and documentation blurred into something deeply unsettling. New posts still appear, each one adding to a growing archive of moments where something almost happened. Moments where someone trusted the wrong person, or opened the wrong door, or realized, just a little too late, that they weren't alone, and maybe that's what makes Let's Not Meet so disturbing. It isn't just about what did happen, it's about what could have happened, because every story carries the same unspoken message, that the world is full of people you pass every day, faces you'll never remember, and all it takes is one encounter, one wrong turn, one stranger who doesn't walk away, to become a story of your own, a story you survive, and one you hope you never have to tell, because some meetings should never happen at all. Let's not meet. The basement trap. My brother's girlfriend, I'll call her Lena, had been looking for her first place. She was ready to move out, ready to have something of her own, but not quite ready to move in with my brother. They had only been dating a few months, and she wanted her independence, something small, affordable, and simple. So she turned to online listings. That's when she found it. A post titled something like "Room for Rent, Female Only." It seemed normal enough. The price was low, almost too low, but not unheard of for the area. The listing claimed the current occupant was a young woman around her early 20s, a student who preferred living with another female. The room came with a private bathroom, and everything sounded just right. The only strange thing was the lack of photos. There was just one image, the outside of the house. Still, Lena reached out. Within 30 minutes, she got a reply. Friendly, direct, almost eager. The girl explained she worked late hours and asked if Lena could stop by around 8 that night. Late, but not suspicious. Not yet. When Lena arrived, the first thing she noticed was the note taped to the front door. Door broken, use back entrance. It felt off, but not enough to turn around. She walked along the side of the house. The yard was overgrown, weeds creeping up through cracks, windows coated in a thin layer of dust. The place didn't look abandoned, but it didn't look lived in either. When she knocked on the back door, it opened slowly, but it wasn't a young woman standing there. It was a man, older, mid-40s maybe, unshaven, tired-looking in a way that felt permanent. For a second, Lena thought she had the wrong house, but the man quickly reassured her. He said he was the landlord. The tenant, the girl from the listing, was working late, and she had asked him to show the place. His tone was calm, almost too calm. So Lena stepped inside. At first, nothing seemed outright wrong, just empty. The kitchen light was on, but the rest of the house sat in dim shadows. As he walked her through, flipping lights on only when necessary and turning them off just as quickly, Lena started to notice something that made her stomach tighten. There was no furniture, not a couch, not a table, not even a chair. Every room was bare. The man moved quickly, almost impatiently, giving her only a few seconds in each space before urging her along. When she asked questions, he answered politely, but with an edge of irritation, as if her curiosity was inconvenient. Then there was the door. One room he refused to open. He told her it belonged to the tenant, said he didn't want to invade her privacy, but something about the way he said it felt rehearsed. As they passed back through the living area, Lena noticed something else. The front door wasn't just broken, it had been sealed shut, a thick wooden plank nailed across it from the inside. That's when the unease really settled in. She decided it was time to leave. She gave a polite smile, started her "thank you for showing me" routine, already planning her exit. But then the man stopped her. He said he had forgotten something. The basement. He told her it had just been fixed up, said it would make a great recreational space, and she had to see it. They were standing in a narrow hallway. The basement door was right there. When he opened it, the door swung outward, blocking the path back to the kitchen, blocking the only clear way out. Beyond it, the basement was nothing but darkness. No light, no movement, just a black void descending down a narrow set of stairs. The man stepped aside, smiled, and gestured downward. "After you." What happened next was luck. Pure, unexplainable luck. Lena's phone buzzed. At the same moment, headlights washed briefly across the front of the house, someone pulling up outside. Thinking fast, she raised the phone to her ear and pretended to answer. "Hey, yeah, are you here already?" she said, loud enough for him to hear. "Okay, I'll come let you in. You've got to see this place." She didn't wait for a response. She stepped past him, careful, controlled, and moved toward the back door. The man just watched her, his expression shifting, confused, maybe calculating. The moment she crossed the threshold, she didn't look back. She ran straight to her car, hands shaking, heart pounding. And she didn't stop until she was far, far away from that house. When she got home, she told everything. My brother called the police. An investigation followed. But by the time officers arrived, the listing had already been taken down. And what they found inside that house was worse than anyone expected. The property hadn't been rented at all. It had been foreclosed months earlier. Abandoned. The man wasn't a landlord. He had been living there, illegally. The locked room he refused to open. That was where he stayed. Inside, police found piles of filthy blankets, spoiled food, and walls covered, completely covered, with torn, yellowed pages from old magazines. But the basement, that was the worst part. Halfway down the stairs, stretched tightly from wall to wall, was a thin piece of fishing line, positioned just low enough to catch someone walking down in the dark, to trip them, to send them forward into whatever waited below. At the bottom, the space was empty, except for a few things. More blankets, a wooden handle wrapped tightly in belts, and a small box filled with different kinds of tape. Lena never went back, and she never found another place through listings like that again, because sometimes the people you're told you'll meet are the ones you should fear the most. If you've ever had an encounter that made your instincts scream, trust them, because not every story ends with someone walking away, and some doors are better left unopened. The text that found me. This happened when I was 14, living in a small town where nothing ever really felt dangerous. At that age, I didn't call people back. I texted. So when I saw the missed call from an unfamiliar number, I sent a simple message asking who it was. The reply came quickly. They said it was a mistake. Wrong number. That should have been the end of it. But it wasn't. The messages kept coming. Casual at first. Hey, how are you? What are you doing? Normal enough, just persistent. I was young, bored, curious, and maybe a little too trusting. So I answered, not truthfully, but enough to keep the conversation going. I gave a fake name, even sent a fake photo I'd found online just in case. I told him I was 14, thinking that would make him back off if anything felt off. It didn't. He said he was 17, and almost immediately, the tone shifted. He was intense, overly affectionate. The kind of messages that didn't feel real, like lines from a bad movie. He told me I was too good for him, that he was lucky to even talk to me, that I was special. It felt strange, but not dangerous, not yet. He would send dozens of messages a day, sometimes over 100. I'd only respond to a few. It became background noise more than anything else, something I could ignore when I wanted. Until the day everything changed. I told a friend about him. We laughed about how weird he sounded, how over the top everything was. So we decided to prank call him, just to hear his voice, just to prove to ourselves he was exactly what he claimed to be. He answered. And the voice on the other end was not a 17-year-old boy. It was a grown man, older, calm, completely wrong. We hung up immediately. Neither of us said anything for a few seconds. We didn't need to. Something had shifted, and we both felt it. I stopped replying to his messages that same day, blocked him out and ignored everything. But somehow, he knew. The calls started first, over and over again. I never answered. Then the messages came back, different this time, more demanding, more frantic. He knew it was me who had called. To this day, I don't know how. I had given him a fake name, no real photo, no real information. My number wasn't tied to anything public. I had only told him the general region I lived in, nothing more. And yet, he knew. Then he started contacting my friend too. We had forgotten to hide her number when we called him. That mistake opened a door we couldn't close. The messages escalated. "Where are you? Why won't you answer me? Tell her to come meet me." He called us both repeatedly, over and over again. We stopped answering our phones completely, but ignoring him didn't make him go away. One afternoon at school, our phones lit up at the same time. A message, just an image. It was our school. There were multiple schools in our town, several he could have guessed, but he chose the right one, the exact one. That was the moment fear stopped being abstract. It became real. We didn't leave school that day. We stayed inside long after classes ended, too afraid to step outside and see if he was there, watching, waiting. When we finally left, it was with a teacher we trusted, someone who could take us home safely. Even then, neither of us spoke much during the ride, because we both knew something wasn't right. When I got home, I turned my phone back on, and the messages flooded in, dozens, then more. He said he had traveled for hours to see me, that he didn't understand why I hadn't come out, that he loved me, a man I had never met, a man who wasn't who he said he was, a man who had somehow found my world, from almost nothing. I was too afraid to tell my parents at first, so we did the only thing we could think of. We got new phone numbers and cut the old ones off completely, like it had never happened. But fear doesn't disappear that easily. For weeks I couldn't walk anywhere alone. Every shadow felt like it could be him. Every unfamiliar car made my chest tighten. Because once someone finds you, even a little, you start to wonder how much more they know. Eventually, I told my family. We went to the police and made a report. But the number he used led nowhere. A disposable phone, no name, no trail, just a voice and a presence that slipped in and out of my life without leaving anything behind, except the memory. A man pretending to be a teenage boy who traveled hours to find a 14-year-old girl. And the most terrifying part, he got close enough to take a picture. So to the man behind that number, let's never meet again. The job offer I refused. This happened a few years ago, but even now, when I think back on it, there's this quiet, lingering unease that settles in my chest, like something I narrowly avoided without ever fully understanding what it was. At the time, I was in my early 20s, but I looked much younger, small, soft-spoken, the kind of person people often underestimated, and I knew that. I had always been aware that to the wrong person, I might look like an easy target. I had been searching for work when I came across an ad for a small company looking for an office assistant. No experience required, training provided. It sounded perfect, safe, simple, exactly what I needed. I applied, and almost immediately I got a response. They wanted to interview me. The building itself was impressive, old, elegant, the kind of place with high ceilings and polished floors that echoed your footsteps. It took me a while to get there, but when I finally stepped inside, I remember thinking, if I had to work anywhere, this wouldn't be so bad. The office was on the 3rd floor. Inside, though, something felt slightly off. Not wrong, just incomplete. The space was modern but bare. Furniture was sparse, boxes still unpacked, as if they had only just moved in, or hadn't fully settled. Still, I brushed it off. The interview went well, almost too well. Every person I met was friendly, warm, reassuring. I only saw women working there, which at the time made me feel even more at ease. The woman who interviewed me, she was especially kind. She didn't rush me, didn't interrogate me. Instead, she spoke to me like we already knew each other, like I already belonged there. We even chatted after the interview ended, just casual conversation. It felt genuine. By the time I left, I was already imagining myself working there. I hadn't even been home for more than a few minutes when my phone rang. It was them. I got the job. I remember smiling, that small rush of relief washing over me. I was about to accept when the woman on the phone said something that made that feeling falter. "Great," she said. "You'll come in tomorrow and we'll have the van take you to where you'll be working." "The van?" I paused, confused. "What do you mean?" I asked. There was a slight shift in her tone, still polite, but less warm than before. She explained that I wouldn't actually be working in the office. Instead, I'd be meeting customers, talking to them, selling things on behalf of the company. It wasn't what I had applied for, not even close. At first, I tried to rationalize it. Maybe they thought I'd be a better fit somewhere else. Maybe this was just how their business worked. New company, flexible roles, things like that. But something didn't sit right. So I started asking questions. Where would I be going? Who would I be meeting? What exactly would I be selling? That's when the shift became undeniable. The warmth vanished. Her voice tightened. Shorter responses, vague answers. Every question I asked seemed to irritate her more, and no matter how I phrased it, she refused to give me anything specific. No location, no details, just the van. By then, the feeling in my chest had changed completely. It wasn't excitement anymore, it was instinct. Every alarm bell in my mind was going off at once, telling me the same thing. This wasn't right, so I declined. Politely, carefully. I thanked her for the opportunity and told her I wasn't interested. There was a pause on the line, just long enough to feel deliberate. Then she hung up. No goodbye, no attempt to persuade me, just silence. I sat there for a while after the call ended, staring at my phone, trying to convince myself I had overreacted. But I couldn't shake the feeling. So I reported it. I explained everything. The interview, the sudden change, the lack of answers, the van, and when someone finally went to check on the office, it was gone. The entire floor, empty. No desks, no staff, no trace that anyone had been there at all. They had only rented the space for a week and disappeared. I still don't know what that job really was. I don't know where that van would have taken me, or who I would have met if I had said yes. And honestly, I don't think I want to know. So, to the people who interviewed me that day, let's not meet again. The story ends here, but the terror does not. Join me again. Like, comment, and subscribe if you dare.